Imagine someone in a late-night room. The city outside is still alive. Lights flicker beyond the windows, cars pass by, and distant voices can be heard somewhere far away. Inside, however, there is silence. Only the faint, cold glow of a laptop illuminates the face, and the soft tapping of the keyboard occasionally breaks the stillness. The person is just browsing. Nothing unusual. Perhaps planning a trip, perhaps looking up an old acquaintance, or simply trying to unwind after a long day, scrolling, clicking, pausing on an image, moving on to a video, opening one article, closing another. It is all so ordinary that it almost goes unnoticed. And yet, every single action means something. Every click is a small signal. Every search is a data point. Every second you spend paying attention to something leaves a trace behind. Invisible traces that you are not collecting about yourself, others are. Most people do not even notice this. Not because they are not intelligent enough, but because the entire system has been designed to feel natural, to feel convenient, to discourage too many questions. Just use it. Just keep scrolling. In the previous part, we discussed how the digital world is far from as neutral as it first appears. The internet is no longer simply an open space where information flows freely. It has become a highly complex economic and technological system that knows exactly how to capture your attention, influence your decisions, and shape your behavior. What you see online is rarely random. Algorithms decide what is considered relevant to you. Data models attempt to predict what you will click on. Companies compete for your attention because attention has become a form of currency, and your data is more valuable than most people realize. Instead, this video asks a different question. Is it possible to be present in the online space without completely losing control over yourself? Is it possible to use modern technology without becoming fully transparent to those who build profit from your habits, your attention, and your decisions? This is what digital invisibility is about. And it is important to clarify something from the very beginning. Digital invisibility is not paranoia. It is not escape. It is not secrecy. It is not about being a criminal or having something to hide. It is not about retreating into the wilderness and throwing away your phone. It is about reclaiming the right to decide over your own digital presence. It means choosing what remains behind you, deciding which applications have access to your data and which do not, choosing when to share something about yourself and when to keep it private. It means not handing over your personal patterns automatically, out of habit and without noticing, but doing so consciously, based on your own decisions. Because true freedom does not mean disappearing, it means having a choice. And that difference changes everything. Consider how much you reveal about yourself in a single average day without making a single conscious decision about it. In the morning, your phone alarm goes off. Half awake, you reach for the screen. You check the weather, scroll through some news, open a social platform, perhaps reply to a message. For you, these are just routine actions. For the system, however, they already represent hundreds of pieces of information. It knows when you wake up. It knows which application you open first. It knows what holds your attention and what you immediately scroll past. It can even infer your mood based on how you behave online in the first minutes of your day. Later, you search for something, perhaps a symptom, because you have had a headache for days. Perhaps the name of a city because you want to travel. Perhaps a product you would buy if you find it at a good price. These searches do not simply disappear in the digital space. They are stored somewhere, organized, and connected with other data. Before long, advertisements, recommendations, and content begin to appear around you, as if the system knows what you want before you do. At midday, you open a map to find a nearby restaurant or check the route to your next meeting. Meanwhile, your phone is precisely tracking your movements. It knows where you go each day. It knows where you work. It knows where you sleep. It knows how long you stay in one place, which routes you take, how often you leave the city, and the rhythm of your life. In the evening, you watch videos, listen to music, and read articles. You might start writing a comment, then change your mind and delete it before sending. But even that does not always disappear without a trace. Some systems observe not only what you say, but also what you almost said, not only your decisions, but your uncertainties as well. And this is just a single day. Now, imagine the same pattern over an entire year, then over 10 years. Your data is not just numbers on a server. It is not a set of faceless statistics in a table. Over time, your data begins to outline your life, your habits, your fears, your desires, your relationships, your health, your financial situation, your vulnerabilities, even the moments when you feel uncertain, when you feel alone, or when you are most susceptible to influence, and someone is watching that pattern. It is not necessarily a person sitting in a dark room watching your data. The reality is far more ordinary, and for that reason, far more unsettling. Machines are doing the work. Algorithms, systems capable of building a behavioral profile about you in seconds, then using that profile for business, political, or psychological purposes. Which news you see first, which videos the platform recommends, which advertisement appears at your most vulnerable moment, what price you are shown for the same flight someone else sees for less, what kind of loan is offered to you, which types of content amplify your fear or anger. Because emotions generate attention, and attention generates profit. And none of this happens by accident. Data lies behind all of it. Your data. Many people respond by saying they have nothing to hide, that they are not doing anything wrong, so data collection does not bother them. At first, this sounds reasonable, but this is not about guilt. It is about exposure. Because influence is rarely obvious. You do not feel when you are being guided. You do not hear an alarm when you are being manipulated. You do not notice when the world you see online gradually narrows around you, enclosing you in a version of reality shaped by others. Imagine what it would feel like if someone read your diary every night. Not to attack you, not to openly harm you, simply to understand you as deeply as possible, to know what you respond to emotionally, what you fear, what you desire, when you feel uncertain, and then to use that knowledge to show you exactly the messages, images, and content that have the strongest effect on you. After a while, you might not even be sure whether your decisions were truly your own. This is where the question of digital freedom becomes truly important. Because freedom does not come from being surrounded by an endless amount of content. Freedom begins where you still have control over who has access to your life, and to what extent it can be shaped without your awareness. There is, however, an even more unsettling aspect to all of this. It is not only about what data you leave behind, but also how long that data remains. One of the defining characteristics of the digital world is that almost nothing truly disappears. What you upload today may still be stored somewhere years from now. What you write today in a comment or a search bar can later become part of the profile built about you. A past interest, a former fear, or a difficult period in your life can continue to influence what content you see, what offers you receive, or how systems categorize you, even long after it has passed. In real life, memories fade over time. An old photograph turns yellow. The details of a story blur. The internet, however, works differently. Digital traces do not fade. They remain stored, organized, retrievable, and connected. The internet does not forget. And it is important to understand that this is often not the result of some malicious conspiracy. It is simply the natural logic of how the system now operates. Data storage is inexpensive. Analysis is automated. Profiles are continuously updated. As you change, your digital footprint evolves alongside you. Consider how many places you have registered over the years, how many applications you downloaded out of momentary curiosity, then forgot about entirely. How many websites know your email address, your phone number, or even the area where you live? How many services you use daily, whose terms and conditions you have never fully read, because they were too long, seemed too complex, or you simply did not have the time? This is how most people operate. Not out of carelessness, but because the entire digital environment has been optimized for it. For speed, for convenience, for asking as few questions as possible while using it. But this is not about fearing technology. The goal is not to create anxiety. It is about truly seeing the scale of these connections for what they are. Because you can only change something once you clearly understand the system you are part of. A conscious online presence is no longer a special skill. It is not a luxury. It is not a technical hobby reserved for a few experts. It is a fundamental capability. And this matters because the digital world is no longer just an addition to our lives. It has become one of its primary environments. This is where we work, where we learn, where we communicate with each other, where we manage our finances, where we inform ourselves about the world, and often where we form our opinions. Imagine living in a physical space where you do not know who is watching you. You do not know what rules apply to you. You do not know who has access to your personal matters or how they are being used. We would describe such a situation as unsafe and exposed. Yet in the digital space, billions of people live exactly like this every single day. And not because they lack intelligence, but because no one has taught them the fundamentals of digital self-protection. Schools rarely address it. Platforms have no real incentive to make you highly aware. The system, by design, does not reward invisibility. It rewards the most complete possible data sharing. Yet you are here, watching this video. That alone already means something. It means you have started asking questions. You have begun to notice how these mechanisms work. And every change begins there, with someone choosing, for the first time, to pay attention. But what specific traces do we leave behind day after day? One of the most well-known is the IP address. Every time you connect to the internet, your internet service provider and the websites you visit can see this identifier. To you, it may seem like just a technical detail, but behind it lies your approximate location, the name of your provider, and often even the type of device you are using. Then there are cookies. These are small files that track your browsing behavior. They record that you visited a site, what you clicked on, how much time you spent there, and they recognize you when you return. They do not necessarily know your name. In many cases, they know something far more valuable, your behavior. And from this behavior, a profile gradually emerges. A digital portrait of your personality that follows you from site to site, from platform to platform. Sometimes even when two services appear to have no connection to each other. There is, however, an even more sophisticated method. It is called browser fingerprinting. This is no longer a simple file you can delete from your browser. Here, your device itself becomes identifiable. The system observes details such as which fonts are installed on your device, your screen resolution, the operating system you use, the plugins running in your browser, your time zone, or even technical identifiers related to your sound hardware. Individually, these details seem insignificant. Together, however, they form an almost unique combination, like a digital signature, an invisible identifier that you may never notice yourself, yet systems can recognize again and again. Even emails reveal more about you than most people realize. When you open a message, in some cases, the sender is immediately notified. They may see not only that you have read it, but also when it happened, which device you used, and often even your approximate location. Behind what appears to be a simple message, small tracking systems are often operating invisibly. Your photos can also reveal more than you might expect. An image does not only contain the moment it captures. In many cases, it also includes metadata, an invisible layer of information that can contain the exact time it was taken, the location, the type of device used, and even technical details about your phone or camera. If you upload these images to the internet and the platform does not remove this data, the photo may reveal more about you than you ever intended to share. And these are still just a few examples. The list is far longer. So long that most people never stop to consider how many elements contribute to their digital profile. Yet even this much is enough to understand something important. The most accurate portrait of you is often not built from what you consciously choose to share, but from what you leave behind without noticing. And this is where the real question begins. What can be done about it? Where is the point at which a person starts to regain some control? Perhaps the most important answer is simpler than it seems. Awareness. Not paranoia, not fear, but attention. The next time a website asks whether you accept cookies, do you pause for a moment, or do you automatically click Accept? When an application requests access to your location, your camera, or your microphone, do you ask yourself whether it truly needs that access to function? These may seem like small decisions, almost insignificant. Yet over time, the quality of your digital life is shaped by these small decisions. A conscious presence is not built on a single major step. It is not about disappearing from the internet overnight. It is about beginning to pay attention to your everyday choices. Even your browser settings matter more than you might think. Private browsing mode does not make you completely invisible, but it reduces the effectiveness of certain tracking methods. There are also browsers specifically designed to minimize tracking, as well as extensions that block third-party trackers before they can collect data about you. Switching your search engine can also be a surprisingly powerful step. Most major search engines store every query, connect it to your profile, and use it to build a detailed picture of your interests and thinking. However, there are alternatives that do not track you, do not profile you, and do not build their business model on your data. Password managers may not seem directly related to digital invisibility at first, yet they are an important part of protection. Strong, unique passwords mean that a single compromised account does not expose your entire online life. Two-factor authentication adds another layer of security. Not a perfect shield, but an additional barrier for those attempting to access your data. And this is what digital self-protection is really about. Not perfect invisibility, but not being an easy target. Now we arrive at a tool that is often mentioned in this context, yet widely misunderstood. This is the VPN, or Virtual Private Network. Many imagine it as some kind of mysterious, semi-legal technology used only by hackers or overly cautious individuals. In reality, it is much simpler and far more ordinary. A VPN is like a sealed envelope in the digital world. When you use the internet without a VPN, it is similar to sending a postcard. Others can potentially see parts of it along the way. When you use a VPN, your connection travels through an encrypted channel. This means your internet service provider cannot clearly see which websites you visit, and websites do not necessarily detect your real IP address or actual location. This is especially important on public Wi-Fi networks. In a cafe, airport, or hotel, unsecured connections are much easier to intercept. A VPN does not perform magic. It uses encryption, the same fundamental principle that banks, large corporations, and government systems have relied on for decades. Today, this technology is accessible to anyone, but awareness matters here as well. Not all VPN services are trustworthy. Some free options do exactly what they claim to protect you from. They log your traffic, collect data about you, and sell it onward. Choosing the right tool is itself a decision. And this is a good moment to pause and consider a deeper question. Why does any of this really matter? Why invest effort into it when it would be easier to simply accept that this is how the world works? Because adaptation alone is not the same as freedom. If you only adapt, you are always operating within rules set by others. Others decide what content surrounds you. Others shape what information reaches you. Others define how systems, algorithms, and platforms perceive you. Regaining control does not mean going to war with technology. It does not mean withdrawing completely from the digital world. It means becoming an active participant in your own digital life again, rather than a passively observed source of data. Because digital freedom is not a final destination. It is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is an ongoing practice. A mindset. A system of small decisions made every day. Just like health. It is not a single major decision that sustains us, but the many small choices we continue to make, day after day. And perhaps this is a good moment to think about those for whom this is not merely a matter of convenience or technology. Journalists who work with sensitive sources, where a single data leak could endanger lives, not just cause inconvenience. Activists operating in countries or situations where surveillance is not a theory, but a daily reality. Doctors, lawyers, and psychologists who are entrusted with the most confidential parts of other people's lives. Entrepreneurs trying to protect ideas and business information built over years of work. Parents who want their children to grow up in a digital world where they are not completely exposed, especially in a space that even adults do not fully understand. But perhaps the most important point is this: you belong here too, even if you live an entirely ordinary life, even if you have no special secrets, even if you have never thought of yourself as someone who needs digital protection. Because privacy is not a privilege. It is not an extra service for those who can afford it. It is a fundamental human right. Your data is a reflection of your life, and it is only natural that you should have a say in who can access it, how it is used, and how long it is kept. This is not about fear. It is about a simple human need to have control over your own digital presence. And this leads to perhaps the most important question. What can anyone do today, immediately, without special technical knowledge? The answer begins with surprisingly simple steps. For example, your search engine. Most people use a search engine every day without considering how detailed a profile can be built from their queries. Yet there are alternatives that do not track users, do not store search histories, and do not attempt to construct a personality map from every search. Making such a switch takes only a few minutes, costs nothing, and immediately reduces the amount of data collected about you. At this point, many people ask whether it would be enough to simply delete browsing data from time to time. Cookies, cache, history. After all, that is what the browser's clear data function is for. And it does matter. Regular deletion reduces the chance that the same trackers follow you across sites over long periods. It helps interrupt certain profiling processes and resets your browsing to a cleaner state. But the reality is more complex. Modern tracking no longer relies solely on cookies. Many systems can still recognize you even after you have cleared your history and cookies. The technical characteristics of your browser, your device settings, your screen resolution, installed fonts, operating system, and many other small details together form a kind of digital fingerprint. This is why the choice of browser also matters. Not because a different browser makes you magically invisible, but because some browsers collect less data by default, block third-party trackers more aggressively, and are designed with privacy in mind. The difference is often not dramatic. It is more like closing your door, even when you have nothing to hide. You do it not out of fear, but because it feels natural to have a boundary between yourself and the outside world. Clearing browsing data is therefore a good habit. It is worth doing regularly, but on its own, it is rarely enough today to meaningfully reduce your digital footprint. More conscious browsing habits, combined with privacy-focused tools, provide stronger protection. Then there are the applications on your phone. It is worth reviewing them honestly from time to time. How many have you not opened for months? How many have access to your location, your camera, or your microphone without actually needing it to function? Revoking permissions may seem like a small step, yet these are the kinds of decisions that gradually restore a sense of control. The same applies to advertising identifiers. Your phone continuously builds advertising profiles to make you more precisely targetable. Both Android and iPhone offer settings that can limit this type of tracking. These are not perfect solutions, but they make a difference. And there is something else that almost everyone uses because it is convenient. Third-party logins. When you sign in to a new website by simply clicking Continue with Google or Log in with Facebook, it is fast and easy. There is no need to create a new password, but in doing so, you create invisible connections between platforms, allowing them to link the data they collect about you even more precisely. Email services are no exception. Many free systems are funded by advertising, which means they analyze data from your messages, habits, and communication patterns. However, there are services where privacy is not just a marketing statement, but the foundation of the business model. These steps do not make you invisible. They do not solve everything, but each conscious decision reduces the space in which others can automatically access parts of your life. Now let us return to where this story began. The room. The person sitting in front of a laptop in the dim light, with the cold glow of the screen illuminating their face. They are still browsing. They are still reading, searching, watching videos, staying connected with others. But something has changed. Now they understand how the space they move in actually works. They use a VPN connection that encrypts their data traffic and hides their IP address from unwanted observers. They use a search engine that does not build detailed profiles from every query. Their browser blocks the trackers that once followed their every move almost unnoticed. They are not completely invisible. And perhaps that is not the goal. By its nature, the internet will always remain a partially public space. Complete anonymity is often an illusion. Control is not. Nor is the feeling that you are no longer leaving your digital traces behind, automatically, unconsciously, and by reflex, but consciously, on your own terms. And that is the most important change. The technology itself has not changed. The system has not suddenly become better. The shift is in perspective. Digital freedom is not a single decision, not a downloaded application, not a new password or a changed setting. It is a process, an ongoing awareness, a system of habits, a way of thinking that begins when a person finally starts asking the right questions. Who sees what I see? Who knows where I am? Who is observing what I search for? Whose interests are served by the content in front of me? These are not paranoid questions. They are mature, responsible ones. They should be as natural as reading the fine print of a contract or not handing out your home address to a stranger without thinking. Because the digital world is not neutral. But that does not mean you are powerless within it. You have room to move. You have choices. You have the ability to reclaim at least part of the control that so many people give away automatically. And that control is not about isolation. It is not about disappearing from the world. It is about being present in it more consciously and more freely. About not allowing algorithms to fully determine what you see, what you think, what you desire, what you fear, or how you perceive yourself, but instead, allowing that role to remain yours. Because digital freedom is not an endpoint. It is a practice that begins again every day. With every click, every decision, every moment you choose between convenience and awareness. And one final thought. This series is not just about technical tools, not about applications, settings, or software. It is about perspective. The tools only support a deeper decision, the decision to be more conscious in this digital space. A VPN, for example, is not a miracle solution. It does not solve everything, but it can encrypt your connection, hide your IP address, and make the use of public networks safer. Personally, I use NordVPN because I have found it stable, simple, and reliable in everyday use. If you would like to try it yourself, you can find the link in the description. But the important part is not the brand. It is the decision behind it. That moment when someone chooses to approach their digital presence more consciously, to reclaim a portion of the control that has gradually and almost invisibly slipped away from people's hands. Perhaps that alone makes it worth trying. Not because anything is mandatory to buy, but to experience what it feels like to be a little less exposed in the digital world. And then you can decide for yourself what you think. In the next part, we go even deeper. Because digital control does not end where data collection begins. The real question is often not what systems know about you, but how they quietly shape your thinking. How they influence what feels natural to you. Which questions you ask, and which ones you never even think to question. The third video in this series moves into an even more sensitive area. We will explore how data has become a new form of currency, how attention, behavior, and human decisions have gained economic value, and why the system is so strongly motivated to know as much about us as possible. This will no longer be just a technological issue, but a psychological one as well. Because once you understand that your data is not a byproduct, but a valuable resource, you begin to see the digital world, and your place within it, very differently. From there, we will gradually move toward more practical, entrepreneurial topics as well. How to build consciously in an online space where attention has become one of the most valuable currencies. Because perhaps the greatest power of the digital world is not simply the possession of information, but the ability to quietly shape the way we think. Outside, the city continues to live. The room remains dark, the screen glows, and the person continues to browse. Only now, with a little more awareness. Thank you for staying with me. I will see you in the next video.